Hey guys, it's Gabe from the Minnesota Airsoft Association with another brain dump. It is Sunday, July the 19th, and I am driving back from the Batteries Not Included 7 event that was held at Crossfire Paintball and Airsoft in Clearwater, Minnesota. So, we've done some videos, and we did a little after-action report on the Airtism podcast with Project Echo Airsoft. Just kind of a recap of what Batteries Not Included is. And I feel like every time I explain it, I alter something, and I'm not sure if it's clear. And it's not like it's crazy, but the Batteries Not Included event is a game that doesn't allow what I would call your standard platforms. No AEGs at all. No traditional HPA guns. Nothing with a Fusion or a Wolverine or anything. And when I say that, I mean the full engines. What is allowed? Gas blowback pistols. Automatic electric pistols, AEPs. LPEGs if you want. Gas shotguns. Or HPA tapped shotguns. So there are HPA tanked guns. I don't know how I want to say that. Spring snipers, HPA snipers, GBBRs, gas blowback rifles. So your VFCs, all the Tokyo Marui MWSs, like those are really good guns in this. The way that the organizer Reckon usually describes it as, this is a game for your weird secondary guns that may not get a lot of primary use, because when you're playing against AEGs, you are at a disadvantage. So it's a modern spin on the pistols versus pistol shotguns games we used to play decades ago. So it's again, simple platforms, and with magazine and or BB limitations. You know, if you run a pistol and all you're running is a pistol, you can carry as many mags, you can have them all loaded, you can load on field. As opposed to GBBR rifle, you can only have 3 mags and you're only allowed, 90 rounds. I don't remember what the exact count is, but that's the limitation. Better platform, more limitations. Pistol, lower end, more allowances. So, other than that, that is the key part of this game, is that it's all about these non-standard platforms. But other than that, it's an op. It has missions. It has medic rules. This particular event had a helo mechanism, so that you could buy helicopter runs where you could have a single shooter. So, it's an operation with different platforms. As I noted, this is the 7th one that has been run. And the last couple years, Reckon, the organizer, has run 2 a year. And I know he was offered another date this weekend, meaning July 19th. He was offered a date in the future. So maybe there'll be a second Batteries Not Included, TBD. Look for news on that. But not set in stone yet, but it's a different kind of game. I've said it and I still believe it. It is one of the most original types of games because, again, it's got the limitations around platform. This game usually gets 20 to 30 people, which is a pretty low turnout. And it bums me out, because I think this is a really cool game, and it's not resonating with enough players. And I don't know if it's just because it's usually run on a Sunday, which is not everybody's favorite day. I realize that a lot of people buy an AEG first, and so that's their rifle, and when they don't have an AEG, they'll say, well, I don't have a pistol, I'm not going to run, or I can't play that game. Okay, so the limitations might be, the day might be a problem, the limitations on platforms, could be a thing. It is at Crossfire in Clearwater, which is, as we talk about again, the spheres of fields in our local community. It's on the hour range, right? It's about an hour out of town. So is it far? I don't think so. You know, I went up just to ref today because I love that field and I love the game. But so attendance this time was 22, again, low. And it changes the gameplay. And this would change the gameplay of any game you play. But as we had all of Crossfire's field to play in, 10 on 10, 11 on 11 isn't enough guys. And when I say that, what I mean is there were a lot of single players who were able to sneak around, and not even sneak that dip. You know, they weren't being a ninja, but they were definitely sneaking around to get to the opposing base, to take, you know, pot shots at the commanders, or, you know, do something else. So when you have few players like that on a big field, you really got the run of the place. You can do a lot, which is both cool and it's a little rough on the game. Like, things that would never happen at an open session with 50 people or 100 people, especially 100 people, are possible. So for a player who's in the right mindset, that can be really fun. You're a sniper, you're a guy who likes to do, again, sneaks around to the other side of the base to do something. Like, you know, you get a chance to do that when there's not enough people to defend. One of the things I noticed as the game was progressing was, again, 10 on 10, 11 on 11, so pretty low numbers. What we were seeing is one guy ambushing can stop the progress of a whole other team when the team's only 10 guys. I saw it multiple times today where one or two players would position themselves in a location, or maybe they were on the attack, and so, you know, all of a sudden a bunch of other players came out. But, like, there were a lot of players, single players who took out whole teams. You know, 7 guys. You get the drop on them. There's chaos. You're in an embedded, defended position. It's easy, right? Easy. You know what I'm saying? So I'm bummed out by the numbers, and I usually am, just because I would love to see 50 people at this game. I think 50 would really change the dynamic. Because like I said, you can't have enough people to attack or defend. So usually the bases are left with one guy, and you send 2 guys, 3 guys. That's going to be enough to take out that base. And I'll get to another just specific game hint, because I'm gonna spill the beans on some things that I think future players should know about this game. My opinion on how to be more successful. But again, going back to that, you know, wanting to have more numbers, it's hard to put teams together. And so 10 on 10, I'll just call it that from now on, you know, it was a lot of, though one team had a little bit more general organization, meaning like, hey, this is what we have to do. What are you going to do? I want to do this. Okay, you go do that. Like, they were a little more loose. They had a general thing that they were going for, but like order structure, command structure, it was really loose. Loose and encouraging. The other tried to put together some teams, and there were some guys who wanted to play together, so they planned on playing together. One team was more coordinated individuals, and that sounds weird, but like they all knew what they were supposed to do, and the commander was like, what are you good at? What do you want to do? All right, you just go ahead and do that. And then he was able to pull a couple people in for like defense. But like they were a team of organized individuals, whereas the other team, I think, was trying a little bit too hard to be fire teams. 10 guys. You're not gonna get, you know, we might get 2, or you're splitting the, you know, teams of 3, but they were more teams, and I think that kind of held them back because they were trying to organize too much. They couldn't free float. They couldn't just decide on a whim, you know, we're gonna, you know, just everybody do your own thing. What are you going to do? You're just going to attack the base? Good. Just go rattle them. And the guys who stepped up to be commanders were also embedded player refs. So they were, and thank you to those guys, Andre and Joe Eggstead. You know, those guys came out, paid, and then ended up sitting at their base most of the day. But we couldn't have done the game without them being willing to do that. So shout out to them. Commanding is always a thankless job. And if you do it well, people thank you. If you do it poorly, people blame you. And sometimes it has nothing to do with anything you did or you could do. It's just the way the game is. But like, we promoted through some streams. I want to push it harder. I got to figure out. I mean, I'm going to help out. Again, I was just reffing. I'm associated with this game because I'm a regular ref and I love it and I want it to happen. But I want to try to think of how we market this differently for the next event, whether it be this year or next year. Just because, again, I feel like this is a fun game for a lot of people. It's just either the day, the limitations, or the drive. I don't know what scared people away. And maybe, again, it's Sunday in the summer. People got stuff to do. Tomorrow's a work day. You know, I know that from my point of view, here I am driving. I'm driving to my cabin up north because I hate coming home from cabin traffic. And I'm so convinced that I hate it so much, I decided I'm going to the cabin Sunday, and I'm literally going to turn around and come back tomorrow. I just don't want to deal with the traffic. That, a Sunday, people are working tomorrow, right? Like, this might just be, I don't like to do things on Sundays because then I don't have an actual rest day before I go back to work. But I want to try to figure out what we can do to promote this better next year and hopefully get more players. Let me talk a little bit about the game itself. So, Reckon has put in some different aspects of mission-based and, dare I say, milsim events. So, there's always a mechanic, just because it's easy to do with at Crossfire, because they're also a paintball location. He puts out a bunch of paintball boxes, and those are supplies. In previous years, they're still supplies, but they were like nuclear reactor armor plating or something. So you have to like collect enough to surround your reactor. But there's always a box element to this game, and you're going to be collecting them. And I like the way Reckon does it. He's like, no matter what props are on the field, I don't care how many you have. So some games will be like, you can only carry one at a time. He's very much like, I don't care how many you try to carry as many as you want. But if you get shot, you got to drop them. And if you get shot, someone can loot you and take them from you, right? So he's got this mechanic where he's got props, but you can carry as many as you want. So there's always a box element, so collecting of boxes. He also implemented this year a retrieval of coins, poker chips, which it didn't so much matter. The chips didn't have any value, like red versus blue versus green versus black. But if you got 10 coins, you could buy the helicopter, which then you could put a shooter in and then drive around for 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes, and just wreak havoc on the other team. This got used quite a bit. I do not know that it was game-changing. I don't know, frankly, if it actually worked well. We'll see. I think it did, but it's kind of limited in the fact that you can't take it out on the chopper. So if you hear a chopper and you're on the other team, all you can do is hide. I actually was fine with it for this game because the people in the team that used the chopper the most needed that help. But, that's for the other team, that kind of sucks. You could only fire out the front of the window, which makes sense to me based on, again, the event and the lower numbers, but is very limiting to the shooter. But neat. So you had to collect poker chips, which are bags of 10. and they were smattered around the field as well. So 2 collection things. Then there's stuff at the bases, and the standard stuff that are at the bases is, and this is still kind of following the reactor kind of thing, that there are 2 cardboard signs, let's say, with white boxes on them, just paper, that you have to destroy. And remember, this is a game with limited ammo. You can't load on field. You can only load at your fob. So, like, other than pistols. So, like, it's got this rule of, sure, if you want to just shoot this a bunch of times, you certainly can, but you only have limited ammo in those magazines that you're carrying. So, you sure you want to go crazy? So, he's got two cardboard signs with boxes, white boxes on them, that you have to shoot. You're basically damaging part of the reactor. There's smaller white boxes, call it 3x5s, and maybe the other one is fewer boxes, but they're larger, 5x7, right? Not like a full sheet of paper, 11 by 8.5 by 11, but larger pieces. And those each had certain hit counts. So, like, I think the small one was 3 and the big ones were 5 or something. So there's a breach, enemy base mechanic where you have to destroy these things. Then he built like air pipes, that's what I'll call it, but like boxes with a tube that you have to put pyro in to blow them up. He made the reference, think of when in Saving Private Ryan, when they drop grenades down like a exhaust pipe, and then it blows up everyone inside. It's a similar kind of action. So there were 2 of those, one in the base and one right out the base. Previous years, reckon has hid those in the woods near the base, but they've been hard to find and harder to defend. So he actually changed it to just doing one of each inside and out. But another destruction. So you've got your 2 collection and you've got your 2 destruction. Then also this year we made use of the Ares Alpha boxes and their targets. So we had the targets programmed to take 100 hits. There was a monetary reward, in-game monetary reward for destroying the target and also getting hits. So that, you know, two parts of getting points by shooting this target. When you reached the end of the counter of the target, a siren went off. And those Ares Alpha boxes actually have very loud mics, or very loud speakers. We weren't sure how this was going to go. We set the targets to 50 hits, 50. And what I determined is there's like a 1.5 second interval between when the counter will register the hit. One team, yellow, did accomplish this, and they did it all in one setting. And we weren't sure, the Reckon and myself and the other game artists, we weren't sure how that was going to work. We weren't sure if could any team get in long enough to shoot the target. Would they be taking shots from a distance? For the situation we had today, ended up being all close quarters, 4 feet from the target with a shotgun. And the player who did this sounded, again, shout out to our friend Andrew at Yacht Club Media. He figured out the timing because the light actually flashes. There's a light that flashes on the target when you hit it. And that's to kind of tell you that it's hit and then it's reset. So he got the flow, and he just sat there and he ka-chunk, shoot, ka-chunk, shoot, ka-chunk, shoot. Like that was the timing on it. But he got it down to the point where it actually, so he was shooting it. He was with another player. The player was like, someone's coming. He stopped. They started to shift, and I was like, okay, this is what we were hoping for, is that there'd be some kind of interval between. And then it ended up being one of their own players, so he went back to shooting it, and he ended up killing it all in one raid. that seemed unlikely, but it happened. That was the other thing that we had in place. So we had your collection of boxes, collection of poker chips. There was also a special case, but also collection. So 3 collection tangents. Then you had your 2 destruction. I'll call it 2, which was the cardboard signs and the air vents. And then you had the shooting target, the Ares Alpha shooting target. So I said the collection of the boxes. The other part of it was you had to bring a set amount of those boxes to a place on the field to also get points. So you had to collect them. You got no points for collecting them, but you did get points for delivering them. So that added part of that. The game was pretty even, honestly, minus the one thing, which was the base destruction. And I say that and you go, yeah, there was a lot of things that destroying the base. Obviously that would make a big difference. Yes. It's, even though we talked about, or I said, if you don't have enough people to defend, it can be really hard, a few motivated players can come in and shoot you. I think it's one of those things that only happens. I'm trying to think how to phrase this. It doesn't happen as the game goes on. I mean, sure, it still can, but it's one of those things that happens early. It tended to happen early when the round started, when people were full of energy, and they basically did a bum rush. They did a bum rush in that perfect timing of, I'm going to hit the enemy base by the time all their players are leaving to go do something else. So I feel like if you're going to play Batteries Not Included, you either have to be defending for an initial push, or you have to be making that initial push. And it doesn't have to be your whole team, but it has to be a sizable amount of shooters based on the total overall, how many people are on a team. And I'll go back to saying again, one team had 4 very motivated ambushers, people who were willing to run out, willing to probe, go past the probe and maybe actually hit the enemy fob. So like those 4 players for the yellow team, not that the yellow team didn't do good stuff, they did. They had 10 players, but from what I was watching as a ref, there were like 4 guys basically holding up the whole entire other team. They just were effective enough, and eventually I think they kind of broke the spirit of the opposing team, just because they couldn't even get out of their base without getting shot randomly by one dude who took out enough people to make them have to reset their mission. So that's one thing. If you're gonna play BNI, rush. It doesn't have to be everybody, but send some people. What do you guys like to do? You look like a runner. Do you want to run? Yes, I do. Hit their base. And if it works out, destroy these things, take this thing, come back. If you die, thanks for trying. But I have seen that tactic work more often than not. I don't know if I mentioned it before. So we're talking about the platforms, and that a pistol, like a lot of guys are like, all I've got is a gas blowback pistol, and I don't want to just go out to an airsoft game and play with just the pistol. I'll get demolished. This is a different game. This is 100% the game where you can do that. Now, do I know other players do it? Yes, but usually with like an HPA tapped M4 mag adapter for their AAP or their high cap or something. This game doesn't allow that because there's fewer people, because the platforms are all similar. Semi, very limited, full auto, only like AEPs. He did have some other exceptions, but like there's rules and there's ammo limits. A pistol can and will dominate. The shotguns did pretty well. I don't think they were as powerful as last year. GBBRs, that ended up being a lot of the guys I ended up seeing because they ended up being on field more. as opposed to base defense. So, yeah. What else? So we're talking about the game mechanics, what made it different. We talked about platforms and that pistol. I keep on bringing up the pistol thing because I think people are like, I can't play a game with just a pistol. If there's any game where you could just play with a pistol, its battery's not included. If you're going to get in a prolonged gunfight, I think you want something different, bigger, slightly bigger, maybe something under a Joule that shoot full auto. But a pistol is a perfectly acceptable platform to run this game. So if it comes up again and all you've got is a pistol, I hope you join us. It was still hot today. In fact, when I got back into my Jeep after the game, it's at 91. A breeze did start eventually, which was very nice. But in Crossfire is very shady. It's a lot more woods. With some, they have a town which gets some sun, but man, it was still very warm, very oppressive. And that's what it felt weird to say that and get into that was it doesn't feel as hot and we're in the shade, but it still feels very heavy. And it was humid. I actually fogged just a hair in the outer reaches of my glasses, my Oakley Alphas. So I was a little surprised by that, but I was stationary in a very heavily wooded area, so I was, creating my own little, I'd stepped into my own heat bubble. We didn't have any heat caches. We definitely had some people who got exhausted. And that's going to happen in this kind of heat. But that was really cool. So that people were able to survive without having heat stroke. Now, it's cool we didn't have heat stroke. Maybe I'm too cheery about that, but again, from my point of view, the last couple weekends I've had some heat caches, and that's nobody wants that. That's a rough time for everybody. Dead reg usage was good. Medic rule usage was fine. There was a set bleed out. It was very short. I didn't see anybody misuse it. All right, here's another one that came up. IFF, identify friend or foe. We had, two teams, blue and yellow. They wore armbands. They wore armbands on different arms to signify their team. We had an incident where a player was like, well, I couldn't see your armband, so I didn't know who you were. They are a newer player. And I know that they got this advice. This isn't a dig, but also this is an opportunity for learning, so here we are. Yes, we're playing a game where you're shooting at each other, and you're gonna shoot each other. If you don't know if someone is on your team, take a half a second to figure it out, and if you're not sure, shoot them. In a game where one team is wearing an armband on the one side, and the other team your team is wearing it on another. If you look at a player and you do not see an armband in the location where your team's armband is, doesn't even matter what's on the other arm. They're not on your side and you should shoot them. I just think the person who was complaining didn't put those pieces all together. It was choosing my words carefully. It was an ineffective argument. And if anyone in chat wants to write down what I actually meant, go ahead. I feel like new players are like, I'm not sure who you are, so I'm not going to shoot at you. Nope. Now, I will say flat out that a friend of ours, you know him, Cobra Alex, at one point was shooting at guys in Crossfire's town that were on the other side of town. Like, there's a buildings, center road, buildings. The buildings farthest from them, he was shooting at 2 players. And at some point, I was like, and I wasn't sure who it was initially, but I was like, hey, you might want to check your fire and see who you're actually shooting at. He didn't actually hear me. At some point, I just got closer. I was like, those are your guys. Those are literally your guys that you're shooting. It happens, and I get it. And I just said, if you're not sure, shoot him. It would have been funny to me if he actually hit them. Because they actually had loot, but IFF is weird. Like, when you play a green versus tan game, like Twin Cities Third Coast Airsoft, you know, I was gonna say Twin Cities Airsoft, but like they actually use armbands sometimes as well. It can be hard to differentiate, but that's part of the game. So figure it out. That's my hot take. Figure it out. Shoot him and own it, or don't shoot him and get killed. But your dithering is the reason you're in danger at this point. All right. So that did come up. I'm trying to think of things that came up. We did have dinner. A crew of us had dinner after the event, and we talked through some things. And I kind of alluded to this, but let me get back to the game and the standards of it. So one team hit the enemy base early on, both phases, and managed to destroy just about everything in the base. And steal something that they had to recover. And shoot the Ares Alpha box. That was debilitating. Like that cut the head off of the enemy team. From a collect boxes and then deliver boxes, the teams were pretty even. I think the yellow team had maybe one more box. But they also played differently too, right? Like I said that. So that initial rush of destroying things at the base, the enemy base, made the huge difference. Now, they did everything, which just really made that more significant. But even if they had just done one of the 3 destroy missions, that would have been enough. Because the deployment of boxes, dropping off a box thing like that was even. That everybody knew what to do with that. And I already said I feel like people need to do that, but like that's an interesting factor from how you time and plan. I don't know. We're running out of stuff. It was 2-hour to 90-minute rounds, which might not seem like much, but it was a hot day. No one cashed out. No one heat cashed out. So it really, the base destruction thing was a tactic that worked, but the game as a whole, I think, went really well. I do know the one team, that blue team, ended up, getting pretty demoralized towards the end. But again, from a tactics point of view, what yellow did was just sound tactics. Sure, there was some griping here and there always is, but like, for the most part, the game mechanics worked. Players listened. Players did the things that that Reckon, the game organizer, wanted them to do. The game ran pretty smoothly. I don't have any gripes. Like, could we tweak a couple things? Yes, but Reckon's good at that, and he always tweaks a little bit anyway. Because there's no perfect game, and, he adjusts for numbers and, different kinds of platforms. Oh, you've got a better platform. I'm going to put you on a team with maybe fewer players, etc. So from a game point of view, I don't have much to say other than specific things that I think work well in this game, that if you're going to play it, and I hope you do, that you will try, or at least be mindful of. Hey, do we think they're going to attack right away? They probably will. Okay, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to defend. I guess here's one thing, and I realize this is a money thing, right? It costs money. We talked about how, JBBRs and shotguns and sniper rifles and even pistols do really well. You know what else does really well at these games? Grenades. And I don't see enough people with grenades. And again, I know they're $10 to $12 a piece. So, they're an expensive consumable. A couple people had Thunder Bees too, but like grenades. Grenades are great. I did not see as much use of it from a player point of view. The helicopter actually did a bombing run at one point, and it looked cool, but it was mixed successfully. It was mixed on success. Because the team and the helicopter doing the bombing run couldn't coordinate exactly, so they're just a little bit off. So after the vehicle went, there was a good seconds where the enemy team could recover and medic their players. So it ended up being still a fine use of the helicopter, but the troop support wasn't in sync. So there we are, Brain Dump. This is a fun game, and again, I hope people play it. Give it a chance. If you have questions, let us know. And the same goes for Crossfire. I know that some people, everybody's traveling about an hour. So if you haven't given Crossfire a chance, what's up, right? Like, it's a great field run by a great guy. They have great amenities. If you haven't seen my Getting to Know Your Local Field series of videos on Crossfire, shout out to a couple players who said, "Hey, I'm here because I saw your videos. They were very, very helpful." Thank you to those people. That's why we make them. But like, it's a great field. Crossfire is a great field, and I wish they got more people coming out. Yeah. Sunday. I'm tired. It was a long day. I didn't get the 20,000 steps, only 18,000 steps in the shade, but hot, oppressive heat. This is Gabe from the Minnesota Airsoft Association with another Brain Dump. I hope you had a good weekend of playing Airsoft. Still plenty of Airsoft this season. Hope to see you all on a field soon. And if you have any questions or comments for any of us, please reach out to the Minnesota Airsoft Association or Project Echo Airsoft. All right, guys. See you later.